white, middle-aged, straight, cisgender male, some people claim I am guilty of white privilege, age privilege, gender privilege, and male privilege. That's what Senator David Leyonhjelm wrote in his opinion piece for the Daily Telegraph. Now, this is something that I can relate to rather well and something I found to be rather true. As the senator went on to say, taking offence is the new black, everybody's doing it. The offenderati and the victimhood industry in this country, they are so very active, aren't they? We've all got outragitis. Everyone's got a black armband on about something, their virtue signalling about the plight of some disenfranchised group rather than actually fixing it. They're censoring the opposition that comes from so-called privileged people. And the other one that I've discovered of late is this idea that there is, in fact, only one opinion. You know, we've got to come to this one opinion. It is absolutely bizarre. Look, the extent, you'll remember this, to which political correctness has become divisive, in fact so stupid, was on full display yesterday. I told you about this University of Melbourne performance that has what they call a divisive dance performance. You know what it is, where white patrons are asked to stay in the foyer. You've got to sign some bit of paper, and when you do, you can then enter and see the Indigenous performance. If enough white people do this and enter the room where the performance is taking place to celebrate, the performance stops. It's all about segregation. It's just, it's the whole thing is completely and utterly laughable. So let's have a chat about this with Senator David Leyonhjelm, who's on the line. Senator, trust you well?
I'm well, thank you, Luke.
Now, this story from Melbourne, mate, I don't know if you've read the entirety of it, but gosh, if this isn't the extreme end of stupidity, I don't know what is. The idea that if you're white, you can't sit in there and watch the performance until such time as you've gone through some process outside of the theatre where you, recognise something.
Yes, this is based on the white privilege notion that you are born with privilege because of your colour, and that therefore somehow or other you have to atone for it. It's a little bit like the religious concept of original sin. You're born sinful and you have to live a sin-free life in order for God to forgive you. You're guilty before you've even started. It's a peculiar thing because, of course, there's no such thing as black privilege or brown privilege or Asian privilege or Indian privilege or anything like that. It's only whites who are guilty of this white privilege and this unconscious bias, this race-based unconscious bias that you hear tossed around all the time. It is inherently racist itself because, of course, it distinguishes us, people, human beings, on the basis of race, and that's the core of racism. That's what underlines it. And so it's saying, well, because of your colour, I am entitled to make assumptions about you. I'm entitled to treat you in a certain way. I'm entitled to require you to do things if you want to come and see my play, for example. That is racism. It is absolutely racism. But, of course, there are some people who will argue you can't be a racist unless you are white. The only people in the world who are racist are white. You hear that. You will hear that from time to time. But which is really peculiar because, of course, there was this controversy not so long ago, several years ago, when the West Indians were playing cricket in India, and there were heaps of Indians in the stand acting like monkeys, doing monkey signs, and of course that's a seriously racist thing to do.
Yes,
and they're brown people; they're not white people in the commonly accepted sense of the word. So of course this idea that only white people can be racist is just factually wrong, and it's offensive to us as well.
And the other thing that we get too is it not that, for example, Jed Carney, she was looking at a group of electoral officials and she commented, "Oh, look at them white middle-aged males." Now, I don't know what would happen. Well, in fact, I do have a fair idea if I referred to a collective of black young women and made that point based on their colour, their age and their gender. Why is it that you can have a crack at the white, let's say, middle-aged male? It was something that Sarah Hanson-Young referred to a year or two back when she was caught out I think allegedly taking a kid whale watching in a helicopter or something like that. I made the point on social media, I hasten to add, to Tim Supamasan, is it acceptable? And, of course, you just get ignored because that is the case, isn't it? That if you want to have a crack at someone, so long as they're white or middle-aged or male, it'll just be, no dramas. It'll just be brushed through.
Yeah, that's right. The insulting bit of it is male, pale and stale.
Yeah.
And yes, they toss it around, but it's a substitute for thinking. It's a substitute for argument, The people who use those sorts of arguments are not very bright. The reason they use those arguments is because they can't think of anything that's rational. So tossing around insults is the sort of resort that they end up at. Of course, as soon as you analyse that sort of thing rationally and saying, okay, well, are all white people the same? Are all middle-aged people the same? Or are all male people the same?
Yeah.
You treat them all collectively in that fashion. Do you arrive at a logical conclusion? The answer is, of course, no, you don't, because we're all different. We're all individuals.
Yeah.
That's the difference between the socialists, the collectivists, if you like, and there are a lot of them around these days, and those of us who say we are each individuals, all have our own inherent strengths and weaknesses, and to attribute qualities to us based on those sort of collective identifiers is just profoundly wrong. It's also misleading, of course, because of the differences.
Yeah, exactly.